What's up guys, I'm Cosmos, and in this video we'll be going over all 6 new hypercharges in Brawl Stars and putting them up to the test against the big boss in the training cave. Now we have 6 new hypercharges, and I think what I'm going to do is put them from what I think is the worst to what I think is the best. And I do have Demon Otis skin here, and he does have a hypercharge, so let's hop into the training ground. And we'll start with Otis, since I think his hypercharge is probably not the best. I mean, firstly, just normal super is it just silences the enemies, okay? And it does a bit of damage as well, which is good. So if we just quickly get our super again, and if you activate your hypercharge and then super, it stuns the enemy as well, and it does a bit more damage. Of course, it silences as well, but I feel like there's not really a point, since I think the silence already charges, or the silence already has the same amount of duration as the stun, so I think it pretty much just replaces the hypercharge with a stun. Like it's not that great. If we just quickly get our hypercharge again as well, with the star power that gives you extra paint drops, if you look at that, we get 4 drops, we get shoot 4 projectiles, but when we have our hypercharge activated like that, we only shoot 3. So that's a sort of bug there, I think, with the hypercharge, and it doesn't really account for the extra shot from the star power, so I think that's a bug. But we nearly have the bot dead, and I think this hypercharge is probably the weakest out of all the new ones in the game, because there are some pretty strong ones. Next hypercharge we're going to be looking at is Colonel Ruff's, or just Ruff's hypercharge. Essentially, his one gives you a hypercharge when you collect the power up. So for example, his normal one here, it deals damage like that, and then it drops this, which if you pick up, then you get a bit more extra damage, and I think you get a bit of a health boost too. However, when you do have the hypercharge activated, and when you do throw down the super, if you throw it down, it does more damage, and if you pick this up afterwards, you get another hypercharge. But since you already have technically picked up a thing, you can't pick it up and get another hypercharge. So initially I thought that it was unlimited hypercharges, but technically if you've already picked it up, I think that's for everyone, then you can't pick it up again unless you die, and or I think in Brawl Ball if someone scores then it resets. But essentially that's, I think, is the weak point of it. However, it's still, I think, better than Otis's. Like it's still a pretty good hypercharge. And of course the extra damage boost is helping a bit. I don't know why I'm lagging a lot today though, that's a bit weird. Next hypercharge we're going to be looking at is Darrow's. Now Darrow's one is sort of interesting, since I think it does do extra damage, which is great, but let me just show you it first. So firstly, just as most of you probably know, he has double supers, his normal super, just like that. He can go over water if he wants, and then of course you have the auto charging super. When you have your hypercharge activated though, you kind of shoot out these bullets around you that do kind of sort of good damage, but I think if the best way to kind of utilize it is if you're kind of up against the wall. I think that's probably the best way to get your hypercharge super. I guess just make it the most worth it. But yeah, it's not too, I guess, OP, but I think if you're rolling in on an enemy, you can do extra damage, which is actually great. The next hypercharge we're looking at is Penny's here. Now Penny is well, I think Penny is probably one of the best here, if not the best, but especially in situations like heists, spirit wars as well, it can be pretty OP. So as most of you probably know, her normal turrets just fires these shots at enemies. If we just get another super though, if you throw down a hypercharged turret, she can actually, throw 2 shots at once, and she gets her extra damage on her own as well. And I think it's a very strong hypercharge. So this is definitely one, if you do want to get one, this one is also one to get. And then of course we can just use that, and yeah, that's super satisfying. Oh wow, okay. And it has a massive range too. So yeah, if we go like that, and then just do this. Oh yeah, and it's just going to everyone. That's super satisfying, but it's causing a lot of lag for me. So yeah, I think this one's definitely one of the best. Though that extra shot is really gonna get you that extra damage you need. So I think this one's a really worth it one if you do want to buy it. Next one we're gonna look at is 8-Bits one. Now I think 8-Bits, Stu's, and Penny's one are pretty much on a, I guess, similar level. Like, I think it's really dependent on the situation you're in. Similar with Ruffs, I mean, if you have a teammate who keeps dying, then, yeah. So, you're gonna probably want more of those hypercharges. But for 8-Bit here, his normal turret, as you probably know, it just gives you that extra boost of damage. But if you throw down a hypercharged turret, it actually has its own turret that does 230 damage. And it's kind of like, I guess, a mini Jessie turret or Scrappy turret, and it's actually pretty good. I mean, it can give you that extra damage, of course, from just the radius, but at the same time, it can deal damage on its own, which may be good in situations such as Heist, as similar to Penny's as well. I think a lot of it depends on the map and situation, so you can get that quick damage pretty easily, and I think 8-Bit's one is also a pretty good one. But last but not least, we have Stu's Hypercharge, which I think is actually pretty cool. I mean, it's similar to his mutation, if you remember that one, where he gets infinite supers. So of course his normal super is just like that. You know, he gets just every time he hits, he gets his super, and he just dashes, and he leaves the fire trail, which of course just, you know, burns enemies. I missed that. But with this super, or hypercharge, called Infinitro, his super essentially, he can just spam supers like this. However, I don't think the actual fire damage actually stacks. But I think the main thing about it is really, you know, you can probably get quite far around the map pretty quickly. Like, for example, if you need to get to a high safe, you can. And yeah, I think that's probably the main use. Or maybe just escaping, and then you leave this sort of trail behind you, so enemies can't really stand or just follow you. It just makes it harder. So I think a lot of these, as I mentioned, very situational. Depends, you know, the map, mode, who you're against. But I think this one's probably one of the best, or maybe one of the funnest, maybe. Not necessarily the best. Best one I would probably say is Penny's. Then maybe 8-Bit's one can be good. But worst one is probably Otis's one, since, you know, it doesn't really give you, I guess, enough. And of course, as I mentioned, his star power is kind of just negated because of the hypercharge. So if you're buying any of these, I think Penny's one is probably going to be the most worth it. And yeah, so if you enjoyed today's video, if you found it interesting, do comment below, I think. And yeah, as always, this is Consequence blasting off, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.